All right, Raider Nation, let's talk quarterbacks. With the Raiders being poised to have either like the 8th overall pick, potentially up to the 10th overall pick if we win tomorrow against the Los Angeles Chargers, there is definitely a possibility that a quarterback like a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, who are both regarded as the best quarterbacks of this year's class, there's a good chance they may not be attainable. They may not fall to us unless we want to trade up. So if that is the case, there are other quarterbacks we need to seriously consider. And when we're talking about quarterbacks in this year's draft, one guy we have to mention is Jaxson Dart. If you haven't heard about Jaxson Dart yet, it's time to pay attention. He is the Ole Miss quarterback, and he's just a classic gunslinger that's starting to pop up in draft conversations, and he may be a perfect fit for the silver and black. So let's just break it all down. Who is Jaxson Dart? What makes him special? What are his characteristics and strengths as a player? And why the Raiders could make a move for him come draft time. Now, Jaxson Dart isn't your typical college quarterback. He's a gamer. He was born in Kaysville, Utah. He started his college career at USC before transferring to Ole Miss back in 2022. And since then, he's been lighting things up in the SEC at 6'2" and about 225 pounds. He's got a really good build for NFL quarterback. But what really makes Jaxson Dart stand out is his style of play. He's aggressive, he's fearless, he's a gunslinger, and to me, he has that it factor, he has that moxie, he has that swagger that you can't teach to everybody. And here's just a fun fact: Jaxson Dart used to play with our center, Jackson Powers Johnson, back in their high school days at Corner Canyon in Utah. Jackson Powers Johnson has been seen wearing his shirt pre-game this season, and he's spoken very highly of him. So that chemistry between a center and a quarterback could be a huge plus if the Raiders decide to take a shot on Jaxson Dart. Having a lineman that already knows your tendencies as a quarterback, that definitely is a huge plus. Now let's talk about his stats. In 2023, he threw for about 3,364 passing yards. He had 23 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. He had 391 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And in 2024, the stats speak for himself. He has very similar stats to a guy like Shedeur Sanders. And in 2024, he threw for 4,279 passing yards, 29 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, had an 86.4 QBR, which was ranked 4th in the nation, had 450 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. So as you can see from his stats, he's not just a pocket passer. He's a dual threat quarterback that can keep defenses guessing and that can make plays off script. Now, when it comes to his draft projections though, that's really where it's really interesting, and I think a lot of things can really change with him, because right now Jaxson Dart is flying a bit under the radar when it comes to draft projections. I see most NFL draft experts have him as a late day 2 or an early day 3 pick, but I just would not be surprised if he ends up climbing up the boards after the NFL Combine. And I just think that, it's really early in the process. We're just barely into January. The NFL draft ain't till April, so a lot of things can change. But right now, he's seen to be a day 2 to day 3 prospect. So to me, that's a no-brainer to me. If you can get him in that type of range, you definitely want to take the gamble on a quarterback like this that has the upside, that has the potential he brings to the table. But I will say, after the Combine, that's typically where prospects tend to shoot up boards, and NFL teams, they love guys with the combination of skill sets that he has and the intangibles he has. And honestly, I just would not be shocked if, when it's all said and done, Jaxson Dart ended up climbing into the first round. So that's just something to take into consideration. His draft stock is something that's still really up in the air right now, and it just seems like every year there's always quarterbacks that end up rising up the board. I remember a guy like Anthony Richardson early on in the draft process. Everybody saw him as a 3rd round pick, and he ended up going in the top 5. And there's just a lot of NFL teams that need a quarterback, so I find it hard to believe that he's going to be a day 3 prospect. I think worst case scenario, he'll be like a 2nd round pick, but that's just my opinion. And a lot of it is really going to have to do with how he does in the Combine and how he performs in those pre-draft interviews and when he gets to meet with the teams. But as I mentioned, if he ends up being a day 2 prospect, to me this would be a no-brainer. I would love this type of pickup. If the Raiders aren't looking to spend a first round pick on a quarterback, Jaxson Dart could be a perfect like second round steal, but something tells me this may be too good to be true and that he will climb up draft boards as we get closer to the draft. Now, why could Jaxson Dart be a great fit for the Raiders? And just I want to talk about his overall game style. And really, here's some of the reasons why I think Jaxson Dart could make a lot of sense for the Raiders. First, like I said, I really like the leadership, the intangibles he brings to the table. He's got that moxie, he's got that swagger, he's got that competitiveness to him. He's a fiery guy. You can see the type of energy he brings to his football team, and that's the kind of guy you want to rally the locker room and to fight for every single yard and to ultimately be the leader of the offense. Another factor with him is just his overall aggressiveness as a player. He's a gunslinger to me, and that's one thing I know Raider Nation loves. He's a player who's not afraid to take risks. That's what we built this NFL franchise off of, thanks to the late great Al Davis in the vertical game, taking shots down the field, and that's what he's able to do. He's not afraid to take those risks, and he is not scared to push the ball down the field. He's got chemistry with Jackson Powers-Johnson, and it could be a good situation with him. Now, one thing I will say is like the scheme that he was at with Ole Miss, he played under Lane Kiffin, and he runs a very, quarterback-friendly type of offense. A lot of one-read plays, a lot of plays where the reads are already predetermined. And you can see, there's just like not a whole lot of examples of Jaxson Dart having to go through multiple different reads and make a throw. So that's really where the biggest, concern is with a guy like him. How will he translate to the NFL, to an NFL offense when it comes to reading defenses and things of that nature, because you don't really see that on tape. He primarily ran out of the shotgun, a lot of trip formations, a lot of up-tempo type of offense. So that's the one thing I will say with Jaxson Dart is the fact that if we were to trade him, I think the Raiders, I don't necessarily love the idea of having a defensive-minded head coach like Antonio Pierce draft this guy, unless we've got a really good offensive coordinator that's like a modern day OC that can, run a lot of up-tempo, run out of the shotgun, like run more spread formations, because it definitely seems like with Jaxson Dart, that's going to be his skill set. And I don't know how well he would translate to like a traditional pro style West Coast offense. But if the Raiders somehow got an offensive minded head coach, whether it be a Todd Monken, a Cliff Kingsbury, a Ben Johnson, whoever it may be, but if you got that type of coach or an offensive play caller like that, then Jaxson Dart could really work out. Jaxson Dart is probably a quarterback you don't want starting week 1. May be ideal for him to sit a whole season. So in that route, you can maybe get another veteran quarterback for him to sit under, or maybe just sit under Aiden O'Connell and have a nice little quarterback competition between those two young guys. But I think Jaxson Dart, if you're going to select him, you have to go all in when it comes to taking the risk. You need to build your offense around his skill sets, because I think he really could be a game changer. And personally, he's the type of player that I think he's either going to do really well in the NFL or he's going to be a bust. I don't really see anything in between with him. And that's why, he's a player that you should build your offense around, tailor the offense to his strengths. You look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who was in a very friendly quarterback offense in Texas Tech. And he's also a guy that didn't show a whole lot of tape of him consistently making great reads, going through progressions and things of that nature. But when he got drafted to Kansas City, he got under the perfect offensive-minded coach. And ultimately, that coach and Andy Reid formulated the offense around his skill sets, and that just has paid dividends for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Raiders, if they took that gamble, that's what they would have to try to do with Jaxson Dart. I'm definitely not saying he's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but I'm just saying the guy is a gamer. He's a mobile style quarterback. He can throw on the move, and ultimately he is not afraid to stretch the field and take deep shots. Jaxson Dart, when it comes to 20-yard plus throws this past season, he has ranked first in a lot of the major categories. He has a 97.1 passing grade in this sense. He has 15 completions, 623 passing yards, and 9 touchdowns, which all rank first. So you can see he was effective throwing the ball down the field. A lot of people have said that he doesn't have the best arm. I mean, when it comes to an arm strength standpoint, I mean, he's nothing crazy, but he has a good enough arm in my opinion. I don't really see any type of difference between his arm and like a Shedeur Sanders arm when it comes to arm strength. When it comes to his deep ball accuracy, to me, it's been good. And ultimately, what it boils down to is I love the upside that Jaxson Dart brings. And with the Raiders, you know, there's no guarantee we're going to get with those top 2 quarterbacks. So we may have to look at different options. And when it comes to who's that 3rd best quarterback, I mean, there's a lot of different opinions. And honestly, I don't think you're crazy if you think Jaxson Dart would be your 3rd best quarterback. And to me, he's a really good option going into this NFL draft. But Raider Nation, I definitely want to get your guys' feedback in the comment section down below. Overall, what do you guys think of Jaxson Dart? Do you think he would be a good option for the Raiders? Let me know in that comment section down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.